Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for another video. And today I'm going to be talking to you about amateurs or hobbyists versus professional magicians. Now, I've said on the channel before that there is a big divide when it comes to professionals versus hobbyists. There really is. There's a big divide. On one hand, you've got the professional magicians who kind of look down at the amateurs. Oh, they're amateur. They're no good. They're okay, but they're not professionals like us. And then you've got the amateurs or the hobbyists, which kind of look at the professional magicians and go, yeah, but you guys do the same 6 or 7 tricks every single day and you don't really update or improve your act. And there's kind of a big divide between the amateurs and the hobbyists. And I do a lot of the time notice that there's some snobbery within the community coming from professional magicians. Now, not every professional magician, don't get me wrong. There's some amazing professional magicians that do exactly the opposite. And I could list a lot of them off right now. But there is a divide. There just is. There's no two ways about it. And at the end of the day, this industry would not be where it is if it wasn't for the amateurs and the hobbyists. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, if there were no hobbyists, professional magicians don't buy new tricks every so often. They do the same tricks over and over again. So the lifeblood of this industry is new tricks coming out, and they're bought by the amateurs and the hobbyists and the new people coming into the industry. If there were no hobbyists and there were just professional magicians, then what would happen is nobody would buy the new tricks. It wouldn't be a commercially viable thing. You'd have no lecturers. You'd have no new tricks coming out. There'd be no big magic shops, and the whole thing would just fall apart and crumble. So the infrastructure is very balanced, but it's a topic that's constantly being brought up. And recently on a Q&A, somebody said, hey, you should interview a hobbyist on your channel and get their point of view. And a chap called Elliot Hodges said, yes, I've got very strong thoughts about it. Please interview me. So I thought, you know what? One thing that I like to do on Magic TV is I like to try and provide the content that you guys want to see. And this is a very hot topic at the moment. It's been a hot topic as far back as I can remember, amateurs versus professionals. So what I did is I set up and arranged a interview over Zoom with Elliot Hodges. And first of all, I want to say thank you to Elliot for taking the time to come on the channel. He has a full-time job. And you know, he had to squeeze me in around the full-time job. So I really appreciate him coming on board. And he does have some very interesting views about amateurs versus hobbyists. So amateurs versus professionals. So if you know, I think this is one of the most interesting videos that I've produced on this channel. It's a very interesting debate between me and Elliot. And also, Elliot is a really clever, smart guy. And he shows me a trick on this interview, which you guys will see, that completely fools the pants off me, and he gives us a reference where we can buy it from as well, which is incredibly cool. So I'm going to play this interview for you right now. I'm going to play the interview. It's me versus Elliot Hodges. It's kind of like a Talk Magic because I find out a little bit more about him, but it's more about me as a professional talking to a self-confessed hobbyist magician about this divide, amateurs versus hobbyists, and you know, is it damaging the industry? Is it good for the industry? What can we do about it? This is a very interesting debate. Now, I might do more videos like this on different debates within the magic community. So before I roll the interview, do me a favor, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Would you like me to do this type of video again? Would you like me to do this? And you know, I've been thinking about doing one on propless mentalism versus mentalism using props, because that's a hot topic, and getting two people, getting somebody who advocates propless mentalism, somebody who advocates mentalism with props, and you know, having me there and almost getting them to duke it out. I think that this would make a very interesting series of videos on the channel. I'm always trying to improve the channel and put new content out there and change the way I do things. Would you like to see more videos like this? Let me know in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's play for you the interview I did with Elliot Hodges. This is professional magicians versus amateur magicians. Which one is best? Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock and it's time for a very special one-off video. On this channel, all of the time, we talk about professionals versus hobbyists, professionals versus amateurs. Let's be honest, there are way more hobbyists in the world than there are professional magicians, and yet, you know, there's certain parts of the magic community that feel like they're treated as almost second-class citizens. Now, I talked about this on the channel a little while ago, and one person stepped up to the plate and said he would love to come on the channel and speak out on behalf of all the hobbyists around the world. And I thought it was an amazing idea. But this is not a normal hobbyist. This is somebody who has been into magic for 17 years. He knows more about magic than most professionals will ever do. And I'm super excited to have him on the channel, representing all of the hobbyists around the world. It is Elliot Hodges. How are you doing, Elliot? You okay?
Hello. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Really well. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for finding the time. I know that you've been very busy at work today, and we're doing this quite late at night, and you've got work again tomorrow. I really appreciate you finding the time. Thank you so much.
All right.
So let's just catch people up, because what I want to do first of all in a minute is I want to find out a little bit more about you. So I want to find out about you, your journey in magic. I said you've been doing it for 17 years and you're very, very experienced. I want to talk about all of that, what got you into magic, all that side of things. But then we're gonna get into the nitty gritty, and we're going to talk about this whole professional versus hobbyist divide that seems to be taking place within the magic community, because I know that you've got really strong views on that. And I think it'll be a really good debate to have. Sound good?
Right.
But before we do that, we're going to give people some frame of reference. And I am going to start off by talking about your origin story. Anybody who's seen my interviews knows that I like to talk about people's origin stories. So what was yours? I know you've been in magic for about 17 years. Tell me how that all began.
Yeah, thank you. So I started with a Paul Daniel set. I'm probably one of the youngest generations to have done that, because I got a Paul Daniel set for my 7th birthday in '97, and I think they stopped producing them shortly after that. Now, I didn't really do anything with it for the next 7 years. Then I think I was 14, which is when my 17 years ago starts, because I'm 31 now. Was flicking through it in the summer holidays, I think, and discovered the Four Burglars trick, which is how the first card trick so many people start with. And now I realize, looking back at that specific trick, it's a hard trick to do well. It's not an easy trick to do well. So why so many people know that as their one card trick they know? I don't know. It's not an easy trick to do, is it?
It's really not. You've got to hold a quadruple card at one point, right?
Yeah. So I loved it. I think I showed my mum or something, and after that, I got hooked, and I've loved magic ever since. I've loved magic ever since, and I go through waves of wanting to give more time to it than others, against other interests in life and hobbies as well. But I don't think I'll ever not love magic. Yeah,
and that's kind of come, and since we've been speaking, I've actually noticed that, which is really cool. Now, you got into it at 14. I know that you've done gigs. Was there ever a point when you thought, you know what, I can make a career out of this? Because I hope you don't mind me saying, you're a primary school teacher right now. And that's something that you love doing. I know that for a fact. Was there ever a point that you thought, you know what, I could do this professionally? Or was it only ever something that you wanted to do as a hobby for the love of it? Or did you think at one point, you know, maybe I could take this more further?
Yeah, not really. I mean, you know, when you see an interview with some magicians and they recount their early experiences of magic, and they'll say something like, as soon as I opened my hand and there were 4 sponge balls in there, I never wanted to do anything else with my life, you know. I never had that moment. I never had a defining, you know, magic has never been a burning desire for me to go out and perform professionally. So not really. I did do a couple of training days with Bruce Smith at Marvin's Magic. Bruce is an incredible guy. Do you know Bruce well?
Yeah, not well, but I know of him. I don't think we've ever met, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's fab. So that was cool. I did a couple of days training, but then I was just about to go to university to train to be a teacher, and I thought it would be sort of splitting 2 careers, and I probably could have balanced it time-wise just because the degree I did was part-time, but I didn't want to be splitting myself between sales and you know, you must understand, as you'll know, that Marvin's Magic is about sales, not about playing with magic tricks. I didn't want to split it between that and education. So I did a couple of training days. They were lovely. I think Bruce is a phenomenal character. But the stuff he taught me about selling, I've since applied to my own job. Because, I mean, without going too much into education, I think that, you know, he told me things like, what was it? He said something like, people don't buy for logical reasons, but they do buy for emotional reasons. So you're holding dynamic coins, you see how much it costs. And I'm not saying it's expensive, but everything inside is going, that's too much for that trick. But your kids go, oh, but daddy, I love it. I want to go bam and make the coins appear. But I try and apply the same to education. Can I make my kids love what we're doing? So I only did 2 days with Bruce, but I've got a lot to thank him for. So yeah, but to go back to your question, I've never had a burning desire to gig full time.
Okay. And when you finished university, that desire wasn't there either. That was when you decided to go straight into teaching, I assume, at that point.
Yeah. So I qualified as a teacher in 2016. Got married over the same summer, and then life just got busy. Had a 2-year-old a few years ago. Well, no, had a baby a couple of years ago. He's now 2.
Wow, that must have been painful. I think a 2-year-old, your poor wife.
Well, he was born early, so he was born.
Right, fair enough.
He was born at 32 weeks, so it's actually the other way. But no, I'm also involved in a local church, which I'm involved heavily in that. So there's quite a lot on. So
I've done some gigs. How did that come about?
Variety of ways, really. It mainly through local networking. So in my town in Bedfordshire where I live, I got invited to come to some local networking awards. I mean, dignitaries. So my local MP would be there, local mayor, but then you'd have loads of local businesses. I didn't get paid for it, but I thought it was worthwhile to be able to give my business card out to as many local businesses as I could. I got a few bits off that. Just word of mouth, really, I think.
Okay.
I never had a website. I used LinkedIn for a little bit. Probably didn't use it to its full advantage, but no. So yeah, mainly word of mouth, and mainly from the few gigs that I did, getting more. I did a couple of repeat gigs. So there's a builders merchants I did a corporate for a couple of years running. Me and it was a 2-magician job, so I invited a friend of mine, Steve Price. Do you know Steve?
Again, the name rings a bell.
So he was secretary of the Magic Circle for a while, so he was on the campus.
Yes.
But Steve's brilliant, and Steve is more. I mean, he just does cruise ships now, but he's more of a stand-up magician than a close-up. So I knew he does do a bit of close-up, but I knew our 2 repertoires would be different. So I knew I could get him on board, and that they would, that if the people there saw us both, they would see completely different magic, which I think is important if you're doing a multi-magician job. But yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. And what's interesting, I found, and we're going to get into the amateur versus professional thing in a minute, because I know you do have some very strong views on the subject. But before I do, I found it very interesting when you told me that you don't actually, you've never been to a magic convention.
No, I never have.
That's really surprising to me, because obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been a professional pretty much my entire life, on and off. I've gigged for money pretty much from the very beginning, or close to the very beginning. So I'm always been in the professional bandwagon side of things, but I do think that hobbyists are the lifeblood of this industry. And I kind of consider myself a hobbyist in that I love magic. I see a lot of pros that become professionals, and then they treat it like a job. They just do the same thing over and over again. And that's not me. That's never been me. But one thing that I've always thought that defined amateurs or hobbyists is, you know, showing each other magic and learning new tricks and sessioning, and that happens an awful lot of conventions. So
Yeah,
it's surprising to me that you've never been to a convention, to be honest.
yeah. I don't know why. I suppose I've never been against them. I probably like Blackpool. I probably, if I went to Blackpool, I'd probably gone on my own and wouldn't know where to start, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, I know all the words: Ruskin, Bear Pit. Do I know what they all mean? Well, I know Ruskin's a place, you know. So yeah. The one I always fancied, because it just seemed like not small, but just on a scale I think I'd enjoy, was one of the one-day ones. So I'm like, is it Portsmouth Jumbo Day?
There's a few. There's Portsmouth Jumbo Day. There's the Wessex Magic Convention, which is taking place this April. The Magic Circle's just announced they're doing a one-day convention. The Leeds Magic Jam up north, there's a one-day convention. World Magic Shop used to do the Lads Day, but they don't do that anymore. There's quite a few one-day conventions around the UK,
Yeah, so maybe one day. But yeah, I guess I haven't got a great amount of magician friends, and never have really. I've got a few. Some your viewers might have heard of, some of them won't. But yeah, it's never appealed to me to sit around with loads of magicians. Now, having said that, if I went to Blackpool, the session, I'm sure I would enjoy it. I'm sure I'd enjoy it. I don't think I wouldn't for 1 second. But yeah. So yeah, I've never been to a convention.
Interesting. Okay. No, so let's talk about this whole. Are you in a magic club, by the way? Are you in a?
No. So I used to be before I qualified as a teacher, and again had when I used to live with my parents as a teenager, had a bit more time on my hands. There was one in my local town called the Mystic Ring, and I went along to that for several years, and yeah, they're still going, I believe. I just haven't been for a long time.
Okay, no problem. So let's talk about this whole hobbyist versus professional thing, because like I said, you have got very very strong views, and let's get into it, because obviously we've chatted beforehand. I've got a few questions that I want to ask you, or a few discussion topic points, talking points. The first one is, you believe that we shouldn't be using the word amateur, we should be using the word hobbyist, because primarily most people think of amateurs as amateur. It's always been professional versus amateur. There's even tricks. What's the difference between a professional and an amateur? But you really don't like the word amateur. You prefer hobbyist. Is that right?
I prefer the word hobbyist. I think the word amateur has got negative connotations. I mean, it's even become a phrase, hasn't it? Oh, you're such an amateur. Not just about magic, but if someone fails at something, and I get that in many areas of life. I don't know what other examples there are other than magic, but if you're gonna hire someone that does something full time rather than someone who does something as a amateur, as a hobby, I don't know. I mean, okay, I have got a magic friend who likes. I think he built his own radio. He dabbles in electronics. Now, if something went wrong with my electric system at home, there's no way I'd hire him. So yeah, I get it. I just think the word hobbyist is better.
Okay. Okay. And excuse me, generally as a rule, most people put professionals on a pedestal, don't they? I mean, it's you see so many people coming into this industry and they find magic and they become, interested in magic. Maybe they find penguin magic, somewhere like that. They buy a few tricks, they become obsessed with magic. A lot of people, their goal is to go out and gig as soon as possible. They kind of look at it and go, oh, I can actually make some money from this. Not only can it be a hobby, it can also be something to make money from. and you do see a lot of people that come in and they almost become professionals before they're even ready.
Yeah.
And you know, and then you've got people like John Bannon, who flies the flag for the Hobbyist Brigade. You know, he's one of the most respected magicians of all time, and he's firmly a hobbyist. I mean, so is somebody like, let's be honest, so is somebody like Guy Hollingsworth. There's another chap that's not too shabby when it comes
and
to
then going back a few years, Vernon was never a professional magician, which is really intriguing considering the way he's talked about, isn't it?
Well, what do you think about this whole? This is your chance. This is your soapbox. This is your chance to point your point of view across. What do you think of the whole hobbyist versus professional thing that's going on in the magic community around the world?
Yeah, thank you. I guess the first thing to say is that there's, I think, so I went through a period as a hobbyist magician of being discouraged, especially spending time on forums, because quite often I noticed that when certain tricks were being discussed, you'd have professionals saying whether the trick's good or not based on certain criteria, and then if they didn't like the tricks, it didn't work for them, but a hobbyist or someone who's clearly a hobbyist by the way they're posting did like it, they were often told they didn't know what they're talking about. Now, as I said to you earlier, I think the best example of that is the reset on a trick. Now, for you, as a full-time magician, when you're considering your walk-around repertoire, reset's vital. I get that. Like no reset or very short reset, I get that. But for me as a hobbyist, if I'm performing to a friend who's around my house, or I'm around their house, or we're in a bar together, or whatever, then I'm probably going to be only doing that trick once. And I don't need to worry about reset. And we've moved on to this thing where people are talking in terms of if the reset's long, it's a bad trick. So I think often hobbyist magicians are told, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, actually, they're right. They don't know what they're talking about because they live in a different world to the professional. The criteria that the material and the tricks that appeal to them is going to be completely different. Now, as an example of this, I think the example I've used before is think about all, I suppose, the good TV magic that's been on in the past 10 years. And by good, I mean no pre-show. What you see is what you get. Everything's contained in one shot. Yeah. Most of that has been created for TV and won't have a reset, or will have a reset, you know, because most of that is not meant to be designed to be performed over and over again. It's been designed by the consultants for that show.
Yeah.
Does that make it a bad trick? No, it's just a trick for that specific environment.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's an example on the subject of reset. But I just think we live in a world where you've got amateurs, or I said it, hobbyists and professional talking at cross terms when they tread completely different paths, they lead completely different lives. And yes, the hobbyist doesn't know the world of professional, and the professional might well have forgotten the world of the hobbyist. And I almost think they shouldn't be talking, almost.
Okay.
Because they do magic for different reasons. Now, some of your viewers probably won't remember the name Jeffrey Durham. Jeffrey is a hero. He's still alive, and you'll know obviously, but I saw him on his last theatre tour. So he had loads of television appearances, particularly notably on the TV show Countdown, way before it merged with 8 out of 10 Cats. And he was in Dictionary Corner, and he'd do a trick just before one of the breaks. And yeah, he did theatre tours. I was lucky enough to see his last theatre tour, and then he stopped performing. Now he still directs shows, he directs music shows, magic shows, but he doesn't perform at all anymore. And he said something really interesting. He said there were two types of magicians. I think this was when he was interviewed on the Magic Bunny forum. He said there are magicians that do magic for themselves, and there are magicians that do magic for other people. So your first category, the magicians who do magic for themselves, are the hobbyists because they love doing it. He said that someone like that will learn 17 different passes because it's what they do, it's their hobby. Why wouldn't you? But for those who do magic for other people, it's completely different. And that's always struck a chord with me. I've always thought he was right. And in a way, if the two groups are going to talk, there's going to be some, not friction, but there's going to be differences of opinion. And quite often, I think that's led to hobbyist magicians feeling belittled and feeling useless and crucially feeling like failed professionals, which is just not the case. And if that was the case, then every single magician would have started life off as a failed professional.
Okay.
And that's just ridiculous if you put it like that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I let's pick apart some of what you've said there. I totally get where you're coming from, 100%. Do you think that professionals look down on amateurs, hobbyists? Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Do you think that like there's certain people in the magic community that look down on hobbyists? I mean, because you talked about, hey, in Facebook groups, you review something and you take reset into consideration. When I'm reviewing a product, I always mention reset because to me that's something that's important.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't affect the grade. Like I'll give something a really good review, even if it has got a reset. It's something that I think I need to bring up because it's that's important that people need to know. But a lot of the time I'll give something a bad grade for various other reasons. I mean, Triple Helix springs instantly to mind. The reason I gave Triple Helix a bad review was because it was the quality of the product. It was the fact that it wasn't taught very well. You had to be aware of audience management, and you had to be aware of how to control angles and all this sort of stuff. And the tutorial never put that across. And so because of that, it was just a flawed product. And there's a lot of other routines and tricks that come out that are bad for one reason or another. But I don't think I've ever given anything a bad review just because it's got a bad reset. I don't think I have.
No, I think there's a difference between your carefully filmed and carefully planned reviews and someone who can sit on the Magic Cafe almost like instant chat messenger and just go bam, 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 post. And that's not a review, that's just giving snap thoughts on tricks.
Yeah.
I think I'd say that's the difference. And I just use reset as an example because I have seen many times people saying they like a trick, then being told, well, you don't know what you're talking about if you like that trick, because it means, it's just not it's the expression worker. And I get worker because a worker is something that you could do 12 times in a night. Now, to quote another friend of mine, right, here's an underground name that I would really recommend your viewers to look up. He's the closest thing I've had to a mentor, Justin Hyam. Are you familiar with that name?
Yeah.
Justin is a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. Me and Justin talk about Saturday night tricks and Sunday afternoon tricks. So Saturday night are your workers. Sunday afternoon tricks are when you're sitting with friends and you're doing magic socially. And there are some examples in both camps, but there's some very different tricks in both camps as well. Yeah, there are. Does that clarify it a bit more?
Yeah, it does. It really does. So as a hobbyist, do you feel that sometimes the community at large looks down on you?
I used to, but then I got my head around something that I found really liberating.
Okay.
And it's this is almost like a secret of hobbyist magic that changed my whole perspective on magic. Here it is. You ready?
I'm ready.
It's okay to be a hobbyist. It doesn't mean you failed.
Yeah.
And if you decide that you are just going to do magic for hobby and you don't want to turn professional, that's okay. And once you've decided that, I promise you, everything will seem better because your whole focus changes. Your whole focus changes. And I found that for myself 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a brilliant discovery. Now, if you do want to pursue magic professionally, do. One thing that your channel and watching you has really taught me, I couldn't cut it as a professional. So
Okay.
I remember Paul Daniel saying the greatest mistake that a magician can make is sit by the phone all day waiting for it to ring. Now, I suppose you could translate that now to is sitting waiting for likes on Facebook or Instagram. But I remember you doing like just a brief day in the life of Craig Petty. You said, oh, I had this marketing meeting and I went here. And I remember thinking, my gosh, I would be sitting there practicing my path, wondering why I'm not getting bookings.
You can't compare. I mean, the difference with me is a lot of the time, you got to remember I run a company. So, you know, not a lot of professional magicians go into marketing meetings and this meeting and that meeting. I'm a little bit different to most. I get pulled into different department meetings all the time. Like as a primary school teacher, I imagine you would get pulled into different meetings.
Yeah.
It's the same with me. A lot of professional, I'll be honest, I know professional magicians that do sit there and wait for the phone to ring. You know, they maybe register with an agent and they just wait for the agent to call them up. I mean, that can happen. And you can get by very, very well on word of mouth without needing to spend a fortune on marketing.
Yeah.
I spend most of my time dealing with marketing when I'm not dealing with Magic TV, because that's my role within the company. My role, my official title at Nonstop Kids and Slightly Unusual is the sales and marketing director. So I get involved in a lot of meetings along that side of things, but that's probably only when you've scaled it up to the level that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well. Jeffrey Durham also said that on the subject of what professional magicians should be doing during the day, he says you go to your office and you work on your material all day. He had an office. It wasn't where he lived. He hired a separate office. He would go there 9 till 5, gigs allowing, and work on his material during the day. That's what he would do.
Wow.
If I was a professional, I wouldn't be doing that. But, you know, I don't think I could cut as a professional. But thankfully, I don't need to.
Yeah, you exactly. But you know what? On the flip side of this, Elliot, there's a lot of people that come into magic, and I alluded to this earlier on, there's a lot of people that come into magic, find it as a hobby, and then they decide that they want to become a professional way before they're ready. You know, I remember being told a joke by somebody, I can't remember who it was, about this guy that joined this magic club. And, you know, he got a magic set for Christmas from his wife and he joined a magic club. And he went to this magic club and he turned up and he went back home after the magic club meeting, his first meeting. His wife said, "Did you have a good time?" And he went, "Yeah, I learned how to do a double lift and turn 2 cards over as one. There was a lecturer there. It was very good." And then the following week, there was another meeting and he went there and then he came back and his wife said, "Did you enjoy it?" And he went, "Yeah. There was another lecturer there and I learned how to hold a coin secretly in my hand. It's called palming." And the next week, you know, he came back and she went, "What did you learn from Magic Club this time?" And he went, "Oh, I didn't go. I had a gig." And it's kind of like that whole thing of like, you know, and for me, that's as annoying, that I suppose from a professional's point of view. I hate people going out there and portraying themselves as a professional before they're ready. Because I just, you know, you can only have one chance to make a first impression. And I've been to so many gigs where I've had somebody go to me and go, "Oh, don't like magic." And then after I've performed, they go, "Go on though, go on." And then afterwards they go, "Well, I didn't think I liked magic, but I like you." And it's not because I'm special, it's just because I actually just didn't suck. And what they've done is they've seen somebody who kind of sucked, probably because they've put themselves into a position where they're going out there, they've bought themselves a thumb tip and a Svengali deck, and they think they're ready to go out there and perform professionally. They've had some cheap Vistaprint business cards printed up, and they've decided to market themselves as a pro. That, for me, is my big bugbear, because what anybody's doing, if you're going out and you're charging money for a gig when you're not ready yet, and you haven't got the experience, and you haven't got the skill set, and you don't really understand what makes a good performance, then that's destroying the industry. That's a person who probably will never book a magician again, or ever consider booking a magician, because of an experience they've had.
It's a hard one, that, because to be honest, I have got business cards and mine are Vistaprint, and they certainly haven't got the business cards are free at Vistaprint thing on the back, but they're not the most expensive. But I haven't given one out in years. I've still got some. I'd be reluctant to. And this is one of the things about doing magic as a hobby, but then getting some professional opportunities. Contact details. Now, my email address as printed on my business card is a Hotmail one, which does look, let's use the word, amateur.
Yeah.
But then
I know some pros that have a Hotmail.
That's amateur. That's amateur. But then as someone who, doesn't gig regularly, am I going to the trouble of creating a special email address just for that? Probably not. So what's the answer? I don't know. So, although as we said earlier, I have done paid gigs, and I've done enough to be able to do more without worrying or panicking. My pocket management isn't great. If you were to work with me, you'd know straight away I'm not professional, but it's good enough to know I know what I take and I know where everything goes.
Yeah.
I don't carry load. There are some gigs I've done where I've only done pretty much one trick all evening.
Okay.
Can I share something with you that's a great, just for one trick?
I'd love you to. I
won't show you the trick, but where are we? I think, So I mean, this is obviously a very standard prop, right? Yeah. So here's what I do. I'll force the 3 first, then the 8. So I'll have it in my jacket pocket, force the 3. They put it back anywhere they like. Would you be impressed if in this pocket I had your card? They go, yes. Then I'll show them just the 3. And I'll either wait till someone says, can you do that again? Or I'll say, do you want to see that again? This time I'll force the 8. I said, no, I'm guessing you didn't pick the 3, did you? That would be weird. No. Did you pick a spade? What a spade? And then I'll pull it out. So I've turned it into a 2-phase thing.
No.
And it really, I got it wrong once. I forced the 3 by mistake, and I thinking I'd force the 8. And I took it out and expecting them to say, no, I didn't pick the 3. And they go, wow, that's amazing. And I go, oh gosh, I forced the wrong card. So then I culled the 8 to the top, and then the reaction it got was so much better. There have been gigs I've done. That's pretty much the only trick I've done all evening.
Wow. I mean, it's a good trick. I really like the presentation, but I wouldn't make it the only trick I did that evening.
That's why you're professional and I'm not.
No, I don't think it is, Elliot. Let's get into this, because you see, most professionals completely disagree with my point of view when it comes to magic, because it's that old expression, isn't it, where if you're an amateur, you are constantly buying magic, you're constantly buying new tricks. You do 1,000 tricks to the same person, whilst a professional does the same tricks to 1,000 people.
Yeah,
a lot of professionals that I know do the same 5-6 tricks over and over again. Yeah. That's all. I mean,
again, that's what Paul Daniels did. Look at Paul Daniels' cabaret act: chop cup, electric chairs, banknote and walnut, Professor's Nightmare, card and wallet. That was his living. His living.
Exactly, and it's and there's a lot of pros out there, close-up magicians that go out and make their living from magic. They do the same 5 or 6 tricks over and over again.
Yeah,
and for me, I'd get bored senseless. I mean,
yeah.
I love, and it comes back to the fact that I love magic, And I love learning new magic. I love learning new magic that I might not ever perform outside of showing Ryan, Thea, and Sarah. I just love learning new techniques that I'm never going to bloody well use, new moves that I'm never going to use, new tricks that I'm never going to. I love it. If it's good magic, I want to learn it because I just love magic. Well, and I know that there's professionals out there that think I'm an idiot. They're like, why have you got that repertoire? Why do you constantly learn new tricks? Why do you constantly? And I think that the problem, if we want to get into the nitty and gritty to it, the problem with a lot of pros, and I've talked about this on the Magic podcast with Lloyd Barnes, is they become lazy. A lot of pros become lazy. They don't further their act. They do the same tricks. They know those 10-6 tricks work. They never try to put anything else into their act. They never improve it. They never change it. They do the same ambitious card routine that everybody else does. And if they do buy a new trick, they take it to a gig with them. They might even put it in the pocket, but they'll never bring it out because they know that the other stuff gets a better reaction. While hobbyists have no problem buying a trick and then performing it to their small circle of friends because they have no choice. Because their small circle of friends have seen all the other tricks, so the only way they can carry on performing is by learning new tricks.
I mean,
and as a creator, I'll say one more thing very quickly before I throw it over to you. As a creator, as somebody who creates magic, I freaking love amateurs, because if my market, if I created the quantum deck, for example, which has sold thousands, if I was relying purely on the professionals around the world to buy it, I probably would have sold 10 of them. Because they wouldn't buy it because they've got their set that they use. But hobbyists buy it. So as a creator, I love hobbyists.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I probably used to be against the buying of tricks more than I am now, because I have come to realize that, as someone said to me once, well, if you're into fishing, you're going to spend money on fishing equipment. If you're into cycling, you're going to spend money on bikes. If you're into magic, then you're going to spend... I mean, look, I bought this recently. Is it the Amazing Mummy Mystery? Do you know this?
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I mean, it's very much your stereotypical plastic magic shop trick. Would I take it if I going out wearing a suit? No, probably not. But it's loads of fun to play with. I think Tenyo is a great example as well. You know, most Tenyo tricks don't lend themselves to a professional situation. They wouldn't look right in that environment, most of them. But you can't deny that Tenyo is so clever, so clever. I mean, Crystal Cleaver. But if you're a hobbyist and someone comes around your house and asks to see a magic trick, I would have no problem whipping out a Tenyo trick.
Oh, no, 100%. I think that Tenyo is amazing, and I think it's very clever. I do think it's gone downhill a little bit recently. I'm
not old enough to know that.
I do think some of the newest stuff that they've had come out isn't as good as the older stuff that they had. But I do think that, you know, I would have more than there's this thing, isn't there, actually, talking about that. Oh, I'd have it displayed on my house so that when people come round, I show it them.
Yeah.
I don't have nothing displayed in my house, nothing at all. If somebody comes around and wants to see a trick, I'll grab a pack of cards and I'll show them a trick. I don't have this special antique trick that's on my shelf in my living room that I bring down, you know, for special occasions. I know that there are magicians out there that do that, but that's not me. That's never been me, to be honest.
But there's nothing wrong with it if you want it to be like that. No. I mean, I don't own any. I love wooden magic, as in sort of a magic trick made out of wood, you know, and brass magic. I own a couple of bits of brass magic, but the kind of thing that just stinks magic trick, but is very clever nonetheless. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do. So my question is, what can be done about it? You say that there's an issue and that, I asked the direct question to you, do you think people look down on hobbyists? And the answer is kind of yes, but it's okay to be a hobbyist, whatever people say. What can be done about it on the forums and on the Magic Cafe and on the places like that? What can be done to stop hobbyists being looked at as second-class citizens, especially as, and let's be honest, they're the lifeblood of this industry. If it wasn't for the hobbyists buying magic tricks, there wouldn't be anywhere near as many tricks being sold, which means there wouldn't be as many lectures, which means that there wouldn't be as many magic clubs, which means there wouldn't be as many people coming into magic. It's vicious circles, you know. We
I mean,
buy magic.
I do wonder what life was like for hobbyist magicians before the internet. Would it have been easier? Quite possibly. Quite possibly. I suppose you'd have still had amateurs and hobbyists and professionals discussing and maybe crossing over at magic clubs. What can change? I've sort of touched on this already, but the first thing that comes to mind is mindset. The mindset of the hobbyist. Once you realize it's okay to not do magic full time, it doesn't mean you failed in magic. Then everything, as I've said, became easier for me. So, yeah, I don't think, is it a problem? No, I don't. Here's what I think it is. I think it's a misunderstanding.
Okay.
I don't think it's a problem. I don't know what you could do about it, though. Sorry, I know that hasn't answered your question. Yeah.
Is there any way that we can change perception?
I don't know. Avoid hobbyists and professionals talking. That. I'm not saying they shouldn't talk, but we must understand they lead very different lives. Yeah. So, you know, Ryland and Thea depend on your magic business for them to eat. Yeah. My son doesn't. No. Which is better? Neither. It doesn't matter. But once you decide it's okay for me to just do magic as a hobby, it becomes easier. It did for me anyway.
Okay. And one more question, because I know this is something that you've got views on as well. As a hobbyist, do you think hobbyists should perform magic on stage?
Yeah, hard on this. I've done little bits of stage magic. I've done 10, 15 minutes in front of a couple of hundred people. I've done up to maybe 30, 45 minutes in front of 30, 40 people. So parlour, I guess you'd call it. I'm reluctant to, because for a couple of reasons. A, you're not going to get that stage time that you would need to become good at it.
So by saying that, are you saying that hobbyists can't get good at close-up because they're not getting the stage time, they're performing to the same people over and over again? Devil's advocate here, you're saying difficult because without that stage time, you can't get good at performing on stage, therefore why should you perform on stage? But you're not getting stage time, close-up stage time. A lot of hobbyists only perform to the same group of people. Does that mean they're not very good? Does that mean they're not very good close-up?
No. I suppose it depends how you define good.
Yeah.
And it depends probably what you want to strive for. Now, as I was saying to you before we started recording, I did a sort of 10 minutes in front of 100 people or so just before lockdown. And reflecting on it, I didn't do brilliantly. Nothing went wrong. I just wasn't very happy with it. Now, possibly that's me being too reflective. If you speak to my head teacher, she will say I am a naturally reflective person, which is useful in teaching, but possibly I'm too reflective at sometimes. I get that. I suppose there's more opportunities naturally for a hobbyist to perform in a close-up environment, be it my house, your house, or at a restaurant or birthday party, than there are for a hobbyist to get up on stage. I guess also going back to what Paul Daniels used to talk about, when you're on stage, you've got to learn that they can see your whole body. When you're doing close-up, they're mainly focusing on your hands and maybe your face if you do frame everything up here, as I would try to, but you've got to learn to not control your whole body, but be aware of, I mean, okay, so things like walking on stage, mic technique, things like that. I don't know how to use a microphone effectively. You see someone, sorry?
A lot of professionals on stage have no idea about vocal projection,
Yeah,
how to use mics effectively, stage lighting. The problem with a lot of pros that decide to start to do stage magic, and I'm not painting everyone with the same brush, but they just decide to go on stage. They don't look into how to actually perform on stage.
Yeah,
it's something that is another bugbear of mine, to be
so maybe that is me again being over reflective, but I know I don't know all that, so I'd rather avoid it completely and not do much stage. So then the other thing is the type of tricks you perform. I think you need a balance of tricks you can experience the magic and tricks where you can see the magic. So the example I always use is cards across is a great trick for cabaret. Great trick for cabaret or parlor or whatever you want to call it. But they can't see the magic, but they can experience it. Now contrast that with, I don't know, something like Martin Lewis's cardiographic. They can see the magic happening. Now I'm not going to buy cardiographic because I wouldn't really perform it. I wouldn't have the opportunities to. So the type of cabaret magic I would tend that would jump out of me is the kind of magic that you can experience but not see, because that's the magic I read about in books. Personally, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, but personally, I'm not going to buy stage props because I wouldn't really use them. So with that in mind, I wouldn't want to do much more than 10 minutes on stage. I'd worry there wouldn't be enough variety in the tricks I do.
Yeah.
I mean, something like, I love the Carl Foles self-working books. Self-working number magic is great. There would be, actually, I've picked out tricks from here. I think I could make up and perform on stage.
Okay.
But if I'm making them up myself, actually not inventing them, constructing them myself, they're probably not going to be that visible. You know, I'm not naive enough to think if I have a pad of A4 and a Sharpie, someone at the back of the room will be able to see my written prediction. They can't. I need a thick marker pen and a massive pad. But I'm not going to buy that to use once every 4 years.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Compare and contrast with everyone's favorite stage magician, John Archer, who, you know, at the time of recording, you interviewed, or your video when you interviewed him went up last night. Yeah. I love John. John tours with Tim and he comes to my local theatre. I go and see him. You can tell how much he's worked. He understands everything, the way he walks on from the wings, you know, his eye contact. Now, I've sat on the front row with John performing, and he's completely oblivious to you because he knows exactly where to look and he looks beyond the front row.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know to do that. I've noticed John do it. I know enough to pick up on it. I don't know enough. I don't know enough about decent stage presence to do that. So personally, I wouldn't avoid it like the plague. I'd be uncomfortable with doing stage magic for too long for some of the reasons I've given. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, it's something that you can just learn if you're passionate about it, you know, and you've got no, you know, you don't want to become a professional stage magician, but you're passionate about it. There's lots of places, open mic nights and amateur talent competitions and things like that. There's lots of places that you can actually...
I would do open mic nights. I don't know, how long would you imagine a spot on an open mic night? How long would you perform
5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. But to do 20 minutes, half an hour, no, not for me.
We talked about him earlier on. Look at Ryland, for example. He is fairly an amateur, really, and he spends more time working on stage magic than he does any other type of magic. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. I'm only giving my thoughts for myself, really. Yeah. It's very interesting. It really is, because I do agree with you. It's why I wanted you on the panel. There is this divide in the community between amateurs and professionals, and professionals will look down on amateurs or hobbyists, and they will say, you don't know what you're talking about because you're not a professional. You don't go and do it to real people. And you'll have hobbyists turn around and say, well, yes, we do know what we're talking about, and you do the same 6 or 7 tricks. We're the ones that are actually, you know, creating new techniques and so on and so forth. And there's no, I don't know. I don't think one side is ever going to get the other side to agree.
No.
No. I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
And neither is better. They're just different.
Yeah.
They're just different.
Yeah. It's very interesting. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing you know, you said, hey, amateurs and hobbyists and professionals shouldn't chat. The one that I love is the whole magic community and people coming together with one shared thing, which is the love of this art. You know, the one thing that we can all agree on is that magic is awesome. And I love the fact that I can go, and I know you don't go to magic conventions, but I love the fact that I can go to a magic convention anywhere in the world, and I can go and sit down in the bar with somebody that I've got absolutely nothing in common with.
Yes.
Way, shape, and form.
Yes.
And we have a shared love of this art. And that's what I love about it. I love the community aspect of magic, and I think that's something that we should strive to develop more, especially after we've spent the last 18 months being quite solitude and locked down and unable to really have social interactions. I think that now more than ever, we need to develop the social interactions that come as a result of being magicians. And
definitely. I'd agree with that. Go on.
But I was going to say, before we wrap this all up, and this has been a very interesting, thought-provoking discussion, can you do us a trick?
I'd love to show you a trick.
I can't have you on Magic TV to perform a magic trick. I really,
that's fine.
I want to see something. What you got?
I'll tell you what. I'll show you two different pieces. This first one, I don't know. It's loosely based on something I saw on a DVD years ago, but it's become my own to the point when I think I could justify saying this is original. No, you know, I feel the need to say, you know, we haven't set this up. No. I'm going to find some cards based on one that, you know, just name any card for me.
The 7 of clubs.
7 of clubs. Okay. So I'll find the 4 sevens then. Here's how this works. And I'll explain how I do it. So as I run my sum up, I'm looking for this. Oh, hang on, I missed one. The first 7. There you go. There's the first 7. And all I do is shuffle that one to the bottom. Now, you saw me do that, so I'll try and do it now. That should be the second 7. Now, I'll try and find the 3rd and the 4th at the same time. So the first one is the 7 of clubs. The next one is the 7 of spades. I don't know whether the heart or the diamond will come up first. Okay, that was the 7 of hearts. But I know where the 7 of diamonds is. It's exactly there. Now, if you're with me, you could check there's no breaks or anything. I'm going to look away, okay? This time I'm not looking for it. Okay, so it was clubs, then spades and hearts and diamonds. That's 7 of clubs, 7 of spades, 7 of hearts, 7 of diamonds.
Lovely.
There you go.
That's great. I really like that.
That's so that's something I now we talk about reset. The reset on that is horrendous.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But if you're going to do a competition or something, then you know it could open a card act. It could open a card act. I'll do one more thing quickly. I asked you this before. You got a coin?
Yes, I have. I have Walking Liberty $50.
Nice one. I'm gonna just write a quick note on a post-it note. Now, I wouldn't say we've only met for the first time tonight, but I've watched you on YouTube for years. I watched you with David Penn on the Wizard Product Review for years. Does that mean I know you well? No. Does that mean I could predict some of your decisions? Possibly. Yeah. Let's give it a go. Okay, out of sight, I want you to put the coin in one of your hands and not show me which hand. And if I think I know you as well as I do from watching on YouTube, I think I might be able to guess where some of the decisions you might make. Okay, I'm going to tell you some statements. If they apply to you, switch the hand the coin is in. So, for example, bearing in mind I don't know which hand it's in at the moment, if you like peanut butter, switch hands.
Okay.
And try and follow along with you. If you would consider yourself a morning person, switch hands.
Okay.
If you prefer flamingos to ostriches, switch hands.
Okay.
If you prefer roast chicken to roast turkey, switch hands. If it's in the hand you write with, switch hands. If you've ever been to Las Vegas, switch hands. Okay, but bring both hands out in a fist. Let's see if I've managed to match this with you. Open your left hand and show it's empty. Your right hand should have the coin in. And if I have managed to match exactly what you've done, then I knew it'd end up in the right hand. That's why I wrote right on the post-it note.
I love that.
It's good, isn't it?
Very, very nice. Yeah, I love that.
That's not mine at all. I can't claim credit for that one. That's by the other brothers.
It's very good. I'm not the biggest fan of the other brothers, to be honest. Sometimes I no, that's a lie. I think some of the stuff that they brought out very early on was exceptional. I think some of the stuff they brought out later on in their career wasn't as good. That, however, was very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's called Hands Down. I know Vanishing Ink do it, Penguin do it as a download. And really, from what we've been talking about, this is post-it note mentalism. This is my kind of magic. You know, because if I'm around someone's house and I can borrow a post-it note and I can borrow a pen, I can do that trick.
It's amazing. I love that.
Isn't it?
I've never seen it before, but I'm going to go off and look up Hands Down now because...
You know what? I asked you in a Q&A ages ago if you'd ever heard of it. And you said no, but I'll check it out. Well, clearly you didn't.
I obviously didn't. Man, I get so many people telling me to check out so many tricks. And yeah. I sometimes, a lot of the time I do, but sometimes I forget. But man, that's made an impact. I'm definitely...
It isn't it? It's lovely. It's really, really nice.
I think that needs to go in a hidden gems or something, because that is amazing.
So that's what they teach, several versions of it. They do one where you can read someone's mind, so they combine that technique with a centre tear, so you can tell someone a word they're thinking of. They've got a playing card version as well, which it is fine. I don't think is necessary. It's not a card trick, so it doesn't need to become one. But yeah, but no, it's really good. I love it.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Hmm.
Well, you know what? What an amazing way to end this chat. And you know what? This has been really good. It's great to get somebody on the channel that's not, as I say, a professional, that's done 1,000 gigs, that's headlined this and headlined that and created this and created that. Somebody who is instead, and let's be honest here, part of a group of people that are the lifeblood of this industry, and without hobbyists there wouldn't be an industry. There really
wouldn't. And I guess just to say one more thing, on the comments on your Q&A when you first agreed to have me on, someone mentioned a review channel who's a doctor who reviews magic. Is it Unbiased Magic Reviews?
I can't remember.
I'd never heard of him. I looked him up and he's still got several thousand subscribers. Nothing wrong with that. But again, the majority of your viewers will never have several thousand subscribers. No. And I represent magicians who've never been heard of, but don't need to have been heard of either.
I agree. It's cool. You don't have to be the next best thing to be involved in magic. You don't have to be
not at all
the greatest performer. You don't have to be the greatest sleight of hand artist. You just have to have a desire to want to learn how to fool people. I suppose.
And enjoy it. Have fun. Don't forget to have fun with magic.
And there's the problem that a lot of professionals have. They forget to have fun. It becomes a job. And And I think that that's where all the hobbyists in the world have got it right. But I want to know what people think in the comments down below. I genuinely do. I want to know what people think in the comments down below. And you know what? I see your name coming up all of the time on the Q&As. I see your the questions that you've asked are always insightful. And those Q&As live and die by the questions that people ask. And if I don't get good questions, it's a rubbish Q&A. And
but again, you can sometimes tell, I think, by the sort of questions people ask. Are they doing magic for a living? Does their next meal depend on magic, or do they do it just for fun?
Yeah, I totally agree. And genuinely, every time I see your name come up as somebody who's asking a question, I always know it's gonna be insightful and challenging, and it's gonna really kind of make me think, which is good, because that's the sort of question that I want. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Do you have like a Instagram? I know you don't have a website. Do you have Instagram?
No, I don't. I don't have social media at all, really. I mean, I'd happily give my email address if people want to email me.
What's your email address? And I'll put it.
So it's Magic Elliot, which seemed like a good idea at the time.
Man, this is somebody who had for years Magic Craig.
Yeah, Magic Elliot, 2 L's and 2 T's. My parents were very fussy, but I was very young at the time. At Hotmail, there you go, at hotmail.co.uk. Magic Elliot at hotmail.co.uk.
Okay.
If I can encourage you as a hobbyist, I will happily do that.
That's amazing. Elliot, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Guys,
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, no, it's been amazing. And I want everyone to leave a comment down below. Let Elliot know what you think. And yeah, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I will be back again tomorrow with another video. On behalf of Elliot, guys, thank you very much for checking out the video. Elliot, thank you so much.
Pleasure.